We have another urgent Social Security update today, and I know that you're probably tired of these, but the government just announced that they're taking back payments from thousands more people. So if you've ever received Social Security, you need to hear about this. Today, we're going to break down who's at risk, why this is happening, and what you need to do to protect yourself. I know this can be scary and I know it can be very stressful, but I really don't want you to panic. So today we're going to break it down step by step in easy terms so that you can know what's going on. I'm Nicole from Low Income Relief, and I've spent the last 10 years helping people fight for the benefits that they deserve. But before we dive into all the details about what's going on today, I just want to know, how are you doing? Are you worried about all these changes? And what's your biggest concern right now? I worry about you a lot, and I would like to know how you're doing with all of this. So please drop a comment below and let me know. While you type that out, I'm going to start by breaking down what's happening here. Social Security recently made two big announcements about collecting old debts. One affects people who currently get benefits, and the other affects people who used to get Social Security but don't anymore. And just so we're clear, when I say Social Security today, I'm talking about all of the programs the Social Security Administration runs. Retirement benefits, survivor's benefits, disability benefits, SSI, all of it. So here's what's changing. The first announcement is that Social Security is bringing back 100% clawback for overpayments. We've talked about that previously, so I'm just going to recap that quickly because this is important for what comes next. But this means that if they say that you've received too much money, even if it was their mistake, they can take your entire check until the debt is repaid. No partial payments, no small deductions. They will just stop sending you any money until it's all paid back. Overpayments happen all of the time for a bunch of reasons. Maybe you forgot to report a change. Maybe they made a mistake when processing your case. Or maybe the rules changed without you realizing it. Whatever the reason, years later, you could end up with a letter saying that you owe thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars for overpayments that have been going on without your knowledge. And if you don't act quickly when you get that letter, your Social Security payments could just stop. But there are ways to fight this, and I'll explain how a little bit later. So on top of that, this is the new announcement. Social Security just announced that they're bringing back something called the Treasury Offset Program, or TOP. This is a system that the government uses to automatically take money from federal payments if they believe that you owe them something. So, for example, instead of sending you a bill or calling you for payment, they're just going to take that money before you ever see it. So if you're expecting a tax refund, a federal check, or even a Social Security check, the Treasury Offset Program can take that money before it ever arrives in your account. So sometimes the first notice you'll get is that the money will be missing or it'll be less than you expected because they took money out for a debt. And this can be absolutely catastrophic. If you're living on Social Security, I'm sure you can imagine just how bad it would be to have that payment just disappear. So here's the thing. TOP can technically take money from your federal tax refunds, some Social Security payments, military retirement pay, federal retirement benefits, and other government-issued payments. Now that they're recovering debts in this way again, I think it's going to take a lot of people by surprise, and not in a good way. Now, you know, recently the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said something really outrageous. He said that seniors who get Social Security would not call and complain if they missed a Social Security payment because they trust the government. In fact, he went so far as to say that the only people who would be complaining would be scammers. And I think that really goes to show just how out of touch some politicians are with the reality of Social Security, because I know you can't afford to miss a payment. So many seniors live paycheck to paycheck, struggling to survive on these tiny Social Security checks that are never enough to actually cover basic expenses. This is why we need to talk about these issues, so that people understand that Social Security isn't just a number on a government balance sheet somewhere. This is a literal lifeline for those who depend on it. So if you're willing to share your experience and your insight, I would love to know. If Social Security just suddenly stopped your payments, how would that impact you? Leave a comment below and let us know. And I know a lot of you are probably wondering at this point, am I at risk for this? Could my benefits be taken away? So I want to talk about who's affected by these changes. So both of these programs, the 100% clawbacks and the TOP collections, are designed to take back money from people who have been overpaid, even if it wasn't their fault. And that makes it really hard to determine who might be affected by this, because Social Security often only discovers these debts years later after they started accruing, and those balances accrue over time and can become very large before they're detected. So often you won't know anything about this until you get a letter out of the blue demanding repayment. That's really scary, and it has happened to a lot of people. But how this affects you could be different depending on your situation. So let's start with top collections. The top collections rule is only going to apply to people who used to receive Social Security but don't anymore. So if you're currently getting Social Security checks every month, this round of collections won't affect you. They're not going to touch your tax returns or other things if you have those. However, if you no longer receive benefits, the government can step in and take that money from certain federal payments to recover what they say you owe to Social Security. That's who's at risk for top. Now, the Social Security website says that in order for your debt to be referred to top, your Social Security debt must be more than $25, you must have been at least 18 years old when the debt was created, and you must be primarily liable for that debt. You must not be currently receiving benefits, and you must not be deceased. Yes, that's an actual rule on the website. Now, if you meet those conditions, the government can and will start taking money from things like your tax refund, military retirement, federal wages, even some federal retirement benefits until that debt is paid. But like I said, if you still receive Social Security, you don't have to worry about top, at least not right now. But that doesn't mean you're entirely off the hook, though. The danger for you is going to be that 100% benefit withholding rate. Social Security has started taking full checks away from people they say were overpaid, meaning that you could wake up one day and find that your entire Social Security payment is missing. That's because if they say that you owe them money, they're not going to send you anything until they recover every penny of that loss, unless you take action to fight back. And this is the thing I want you to know. If you're found to owe Social Security any money, the first thing they're going to do is send you a letter. And hopefully that letter will arrive before the issue with the money shows up. I know sometimes if you're waiting on like VA benefits or something like that, sometimes the money issue will show up before the letter issue. And I don't want any of you to be blindsided with a missing payment. When you get it, this letter will explain to you how much they think you owe, why they think you were overpaid, how they plan to collect the money, and what options you have to appeal or request relief. But here's the thing. These letters are often confusing and they're terrifying, and many people don't even realize that they have the right to fight back. So if you get one of these letters, do not ignore it. You have options, but you have to act quickly, because once Social Security starts withholding your checks, it's a lot harder to stop that. So here's what you can do to protect yourself so that you don't lose any of your checks. First, you need to make sure that your address is accurate and up to date. If you've moved recently or if you aren't sure what address they have on file, that's something you need to check on fast, because there's a new rule going into effect at the end of the month that could make it harder to change your address than it is right now. We have another video about that rule change, which you can go watch if you want to. But for now, just know that it's important to make sure that your address is up to date so that you can actually get that overpayment demand letter if they send you one. Otherwise, you risk not getting that letter, and in that case, your first sign of trouble would be that missed payment, and that would be disastrous. I don't want that to happen to you. So now, if you do end up receiving a notice saying that you owe money to Social Security, at that point, you have three main options, right? You can request a waiver if you can't afford to repay it. If repaying the debt would cause you serious financial hardship, you can ask Social Security to forgive the debt. You'll need Form SSA-632 for that. To qualify for a waiver, you typically need to prove two things: that the overpayment was not your fault, and that paying it back would cause you serious financial harm. If your waiver is approved, you don't have to pay the money back at all. You can relax. But you must file that waiver request quickly, preferably as soon as you receive that notice. Now, second, you can also file an appeal if you think that they've made a mistake. Social Security makes mistakes all the time. If you're getting a notice for an overpayment, it means they've already made one, right? So if you believe they're wrong about the overpayment, you have the right to appeal. You'll need Form SSA-561 for that. Filing an appeal pauses the collection efforts while your case is reviewed. That means they can't take your benefits away until they make a decision. If you don't agree with the overpayment notice, appeal as soon as possible, because the longer you wait, the harder it will be to stop them from taking your money. Third, you can also set up a payment plan if you need more time. If Social Security refuses to waive the debt or your appeal is denied, you can request a payment plan. That's Form SSA-634. This will let you pay back the debt over time instead of losing your entire check all at once. Social Security often starts by withholding 100% of your check, but you can negotiate a lower percentage if you take action quickly. I know this situation is frustrating and stressful, but the most important thing I want you to remember is that you have rights. If you get a letter saying that you owe money, do not ignore it. The sooner you request a waiver or file your appeal or set up a payment plan, the better your chances of keeping your benefits will be. And remember, you're not alone here. If you've ever had to deal with a Social Security overpayment, I really would love to hear about your experience in the comments because you might be able to help some of our other viewers. And if you need help navigating Medicare, don't forget that our sponsor chapter has a free service that helps people find the best plans and extra benefits that they may qualify for. You can check them out by calling the number on screen or by visiting lirlinks.com/chapter. That's all I have for you today, but don't forget to check out our other videos for more ways to protect your benefits and save money.